All right, guys. So, hottest story we've had in a while. Third UFO shot down this weekend. Last 3 days, we've seen three separate incidents of UFOs being shot down. And we're going to talk about those on today's live stream. The first one was on Friday up here near a place called Deadhorse, Alaska. Second was up here actually over Canada. NORAD was allowed into Canadian airspace to shoot this down. And the first one was shot down, I think, with an F-22. And then this one was shot down by a F-16 with Sidewinder missile. And then there's a third one. I mean, of course, we had the Chinese balloon that flew over Montana and all these states. It was actually, shot down over off the coast of North or South Carolina somewhere, and recovered from the ocean floor. And there was another one in just today, the Sunday. So there was a second Saturday sighting in Montana, I believe, and then another one was shot down Super Sunday. On Super Bowl Sunday today, over I think that one was another F-22. Again, these were much lower flying, and that was the excuse why this first Chinese spy balloon was at 60,000 feet, and that's why it was allowed to pass over, because it didn't interfere with air traffic or travel lanes. But as these objects were drifting at 40,000 feet into air traffic and air travel lanes, they were deemed a threat and shot down. So, unfortunately, all these things turned out to be drones, and or balloons. Spy balloons are essentially drones. They're they're pilotless aircraft, UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, whether they float by propulsion or balloons, and said no visible means of propulsion. So they didn't say didn't leave a contrail. It didn't leave a wake. You didn't see propellers on the thing. Okay, that's all that means. We'll talk about alien spacecrafts and some of the advanced technologies that I believe we've recovered from pieces of something from somewhere, whether it's ancient artifacts, relics, or what have you. But these things, these balloons that were shot down. All right, and at first, I just want to stress that anytime I see anything, a story in the mainstream media, my first inclination is that psyop until proven otherwise. It's just how things are in 2023. And if when I see this, if this was a crash, a UFO, a real UFO or alien spacecraft, or a crash or something, we'd see a bunch of weather balloons get shot down like this, and it would there's probably a fourth crash that nobody knows about. If there is a UFO involved in any of these stories, or real alien involved in any of these stories, it's another crash somewhere else that they're trying to distract you from with these stories. So, but in any case, I don't think it's a distraction. I think it's being cleverly used as an opportunity, whether it's an operation being, done by the Pentagon, or, a planned response, or just a pleasant surprise is will be determined through further investigation. I'd like to see if there is a connection indeed between these four events. They certainly these events certainly seem to have occurred within a very close proximity, geographically and time wise. So it should be investigated whether there is some sort of link between all these, and is this really a massive Chinese spy operation? Or the Chinese, I know the Chinese would be interested in reselling that intelligence to other agencies once they've collected it and stuff. But again, let's talk about the intelligence collection and what you can do with a spy balloon with technology. The first thing is something that Lockheed Martin is working on, and I have this up on the screen just a second ago. And Lockheed Martin's working on airborne ground surveillance radar systems. So they're working on GPR, ground penetrating radar that can be deployed from a plane or an aerial platform, like a spy balloon. And to think China doesn't have something similar to this technology that they can strap to their balloons and use them to fly over our missile silos and underground facilities that we might have, and be able to, send these echolocating signals down from this spy device and be able to see inside the ground and tell if there's, hollowed out chambers or, underground bases anywhere, whether it's thermal. And they could also have thermal signature, like FLIR cameras, looking for, thermal signature, because underground roads and tunnels and other things have airflow and sometimes heating. So it's another thing you can see. So yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors, guys. Like, come on, but let's get into the real intelligence here and talk about the real science, because that's cool. It's cool stuff when you realize, oh wow, Lockheed has GPR that they can deploy from airplane, and that's what I've rumored is on these things too. Also, there's reports that they were using a laser, like a laser line that was scanning the ground. And for those of you who don't know, you can actually, use computers and these lasers to measure things very accurately using laser scans. And, this sort of thing was reported in UFO incidents as far back, interaction reports as far back as, 1950s and 60s. Project Blue Book had a couple cases where you'll read that people believe they were scanned from head to toe with this device. Same thing with these USO cases with some of these submarines, and there was just a couple cases in the Russian UFO files on USOs where the sub had been locked down, everything shut off, and they felt this really bright light that penetrated the whole craft and like seemed to go down the whole craft and the whole submarine and scan them, the sailors and everything inside the sub while they were in there. And the fact that all three of these things were shot down with like Sidewinder missiles and so easily just really defies my belief personally as a UFO researcher and physicist who's interested genuinely in the subject, to not think that these were alien spacecraft or Interaction with UFOs. That we have a case in 1942 February. Now it's February right now. Right in February 42, over Los Angeles, California, a UFO stood in the sky over right in the hills of the Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles, California. And they literally had the U.S. Army out there with anti-aircraft guns shooting at this thing. And all the movie producers in town started turning their spotlights on and shining them up at this object, which just stood there and hovered and defied everything we threw at it for hours. There was another shooting again. This is Sidewinder. It's not a cheap piece of equipment. Yeah, that's a pretty hefty price tag. So the LiDAR scanner. So the green is the sighting laser. So there's another laser that actually does the scan, but it's calibrated with the green laser. So the green laser is the sighting laser, so they can see where they're hitting and use that to like calibrate the instrument with the radar. So it's lined up with another laser right next to it. And there's a lot of systems that use technology like that. One of them actually sends out a grid of lasers and then measures the data from the grid. And that's in the, there's a camera called a Matterport camera. And these Matterport cameras are able to scan geometric data inside of a house as well as visual data and get a lot of information back. So the way that this works is there's actually two, there's a regular camera and then there's two lasers right next to each other. So this would be like essentially like three lasers. Like they have a green laser that shines the grid too, just so they can calibrate and sight it, probably with another camera that's collecting visual data. So if you're familiar with like how this technology works, then you understand why there's a green, may have been a green laser as well, and what they're standing. It's like but also, these things are equipped with ear listeners in addition to the laser scanners and the ground penetrating radar scanners like that Lockheed Martin's working on. These things have what's called digital radio frequency memory, DRFM technology. Oh, we got another super chat from Joseph Roach, man. Thank you for that. And a super chat from Best Buy, $5. Ohio explosion, shooting down balloons and UFOs, reports of lights in the skies. What is going on anymore? They might be rolling out Project Bluebeam. Yeah, well, I think there's too many people that are aware of psyops and suspect, that this is, going to be used as an op. I don't know how that's going to succeed. It certainly seems like they have a psyop in place trying to roll that out. If you look on, Twitter and other sites with some of the more popular UFO shows, hyping this up and having contests or who can guess what the headline's going to be and all other sorts of absolute ridiculousness from people who just don't have a clue and are just like selling, there to grift and sell aliens. Really, essentially, they're not there to educate people or talk about intelligent things or so the Battle of Los Angeles, I think, is it's one of my favorite top 10 cases as a researcher still, because it involves full military presence and bombardment of these things. And if this thing could take 2 hours of direct air fire, it wasn't a balloon, and obviously whatever these things were, probably not on par with whatever the heck that thing was, and definitely not the same as the Tic Tac incident, which I'll agree with Chris Mellon, who's arguing back and forth with Stephen Greenstreet on UFO Twitter about this. Definitely have to side with Chris Mellon on that one. That I don't know. There's also a lot of other talk on Twitter as well. Is this prepping people? It's interesting that Deadhorse, Alaska comes up, and I was looking at Deadhorse, Alaska, and it was used in it's featured in X-Files. It says right at the bottom on Wikipedia, Deadhorse, Alaska. It was featured in episode 17, season 2 of the X-Files, and I haven't seen this one, but it was called Endgame, and it's about a nuclear sub that gets locked down right over the top near Alaska. It says off the coast of Alaska. This craft's below the ice. It gets locked down by this high-pitched radio frequency, and then the sub gets scanned. So this is related. The writers of this obviously had access to, the original air date was 1995. So this was right around the time that the USSR had released all their UFO files. That was a story that George Knapp covered right around that time. So he could probably confirm that. But yeah, this nuclear submarine was a real case, but it's interesting that it made its way into this story. And then we have elements of this, scanning technology, which was, kind of science fiction back then. I don't know when or who created the first, laser scanners that could, laser rangefinders. So laser rangefinders, I don't remember seeing one of these things really like before 90, or late 90s, maybe. I think I remember seeing the first one of these. I was, maybe like 17 or 18 when these things like came out, like on commercial market. They might have had them for obviously the laser range finding experiment by NASA, right? So that's finding experiment, right? So that was in the 60s. So this was one of the first laser rangefinder. Yeah. So damn it. Let's find the history of it. What does it say? Yeah. So laser range finding. Come on. Where's the history? It doesn't really tell you the history of laser range finding, but I know that there was a laser range finding experiment with NASA. Of course, can't get the NASA stuff, but the laser range finding experiment they is when we went to the moon. They actually had to put a mirror on the moon. They put a really awesome mirror on the moon. Okay, we got another. Can you please look at the link in the chat? Joseph Roach. Did you post another link up above? I think you can do a super chat and leave a link, right? No? Can anyone know the link he's talking about, and I can repost and show that? I'm not going to sit here and look for it right now. I did not see a link posted anywhere, but I don't. Oh, it might not be coming through on StreamYard. Maybe it's on YouTube. Let me just see. Post it again. Post the link again, guys, and I'll be watching for it this time. And here's the mirror that's on the moon. Okay, it was meant so they could shine a laser at it from the ground and then measure the bounce back at this observatory from the Earth. And so they did this experiment and were able to very accurately measure the distance to the Earth, to the moon. You know, NASA was able to do this back in the day, and it was Apollo 11. So technology had obviously been known about before then, but this was 69. So this was towards the early days of the development of laser. Laser wasn't really developed until the early 1960s. So right there you have laser range finding. So maybe, you know, I got to go back over the Blue Book files and see if there's any of these laser UFO cases with laser scanners that predate, 1961, say, when these things would have been becoming more popular and well known. 58, maybe I think it was like 58 was the first. So yeah, if anything predates that, then someone else had lasers. But if not, then there should be investigations into who did have lasers and whether these things were being used for something else. Maybe it was connected. There might be a connection there. That's all I'm saying. As an investigator, I would certainly look at that as a data point. But anyways, these things were all drones. I said they would be. If you want to talk about, UFO technology, I have a whole report that I did going over all this different stuff that's been invented, over the years. Lockheed Martin's research that they've done. I have the physicists and contractors that they hired and where to find all their papers and reports. This predates the Sal Pace, stuff, and is very much related. There's also other people working on different ways to do it with bouncing light around inside of cavities, using this dynamic Casimir effect, and what some researchers call the maritime Casimir effect. So you got, people getting DARPA contracts for millions of dollars to work on this stuff and build it. And this is light propulsion inside of like very basic microwave cavities. But I think that in the future, you'll be able to have more powerful photonic materials in which to trap light in and use it for propulsion. There's also I have a lot of different stuff on propulsion technologies and also material science technologies. These things called strange metals, which are topologically equivalent to extremal black holes. So, yeah, you want to be able to make black hole physics and meta atoms and other things like that. This is Roswell technology, if there ever was that stuff, because our scientists are delving into that quantum level and working with materials that exploit these quantum properties on the macro scale. Um, Dimensional crystals, photonic crystals, photonic metamaterials in general, just the idea that they discovered, wow, if you order things and really get your ducks in a row on the quantum level, and order everything out, then things look things you can do some pretty amazing things, including build quantum computers, photonic circuits, and yeah, these resonant cavities and stuff. You can also build some pretty amazing scanning stuff. The Air Force is actually working on this technology. I discovered in 2000. This was 2 years back. I think I stumbled upon this story where the physics student over there. This guy's great too. I've heard people that have met him and talked to him, and he really is an awesome dude. I would love to interview him and have him on. But yeah, you can look up his PhD thesis on Wright State University, and this guy got arrested and did a year in federal prison for taking home about 1,000 pages of documents from work that were allegedly classified. But they're working on terahertz and ultra-fast photonics, which is the exact kind of technology that is under the CRADA with that alleged alien material and debris that was given to the U.S. military a couple of years back that we've been talking about. So this is the piece of that metamaterial. And I had done some investigations into this material. So this is it's a bismuth magnesium sample, and it's alternating layers of bismuth and magnesium. The bismuth layer is 3 microns thick, and the magnesium layer is 150 microns thick. And this material was acquired by To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. That group of Chris Mellon, Jim Semivan, Lou Elizondo, and Tom DeLong. Also, Gary Nolan, I believe, joined at one point. Maybe Travis Taylor. No, I don't know if he did. There's been a couple other interesting people that have come in here. Yeah, Metabunk said it was slag. It's a very, looks like these chips, which are a common byproduct of this metallurgy process and stuff. And there's a couple different types of industrial processes that create this bismuth type slag. Again, that's just taking the debunking mentality and saying, oh, it could be slag, and that's just the most easiest explanation. But as a physicist, I said, well, why are they building layers of this stuff like that, and what could that be doing, and what is that related to in this realm of classified research that we know the U.S. Air Force is doing? Because this guy was doing terahertz research at this lab. The frequency wavelengths in the structure of this material correspond to terahertz frequencies. And Tom DeLong was on Joe Rogan, if you don't forget. That interview got pulled, but he was talking about this terahertz stuff and said that he didn't understand the damn science, and the physics was like too much for his brain, but he had basically said that he was brought into these skiffs and debriefed on all this classified crap by the Pentagon, And who knows what they said to this guy, knowing that he was just not going to have the intelligence to be able to remember all that physics and stuff and really break it down. And of course, the Metabunk people can barely read, so they just ate up this slag, explanation, like, oh, well, it's obviously slag, like, no need to look any further into what could be a piece of an alien spacecraft. Like, come on, guys. when you have a waveguide that's layered materials of different optical index of refraction, what it creates is what's called a dielectric mirror or a Bragg mirror. And you can layer photonic band gap materials, so different band gaps, where these ends cascade down to make a mirror, which is it's a quantum mirror that can reflect a gap, a band gap of different frequencies. And if you make it small enough of the small enough wavelength of the material, where there is terahertz is right there in this gap in the spectrum, it's literally the smallest you can make with these materials. And that makes you, if you make it smaller than the material with a metamaterial, it can handle all the frequencies that are bigger than that. So the smaller you can make it, the wider your band gap gets. So you can make these things on the quantum level with atomically thin mirrors and stuff. You could build these Bragg reflectors that would metamaterials that could create almost essential total optical invisibility. And total optical invisibility cloaking is super advantageous if you're a UFO, not trying to get shot down, or have the entire U.S. Army sicked on you and gone after you. So yeah, that sort of thing's pretty useful. Where were we with that? Let me get back to this. So the Matterport. Let's do a quick coverage for everyone that just tuned in. So these three things that were shot down. Okay, one was shot down over. The first one was shot down over Deadhorse, Alaska on Friday. The second one was shot on Saturday over the Yukon in Canada by NORAD. Sidewinder missile from an F-16, and then Super Sunday, this just earlier today, another one was shot down over Lake Huron in Michigan. And this was a week after the Chinese spy balloon passed over Montana and ended up down here. Now, Montana is interesting because Montana has a new NSA spy center there, and they have a ton of ICBM supercavitating hypersonic missiles silos out there for the new hypersonic supercavitating missiles, which the Chinese are super interesting. So they're not going to talk about any of this on the mainstream media, and I'll probably get a shadow ban for it. Some of these things they said had lasers on them that were scanning the ground. We talked about laser key distance finding and how they can take a digital scan. That's why I had the Matterport talking about how they take optical and laser data, and they can combine them in real time. And that sometimes this green laser is a sighting laser, so that they can link up the optical data with the GPR and other data. So Lockheed Martin working on ground penetrating radar systems that can see underground from aircraft. Then you have laser range finding that goes back to the early, it goes back to 1969 with the Apollo 11 missions, but it was actually started probably in the mid 1960s when lasers were starting to come out and looking, scientists were finding early technical applications for lasers. But as I mentioned, we have to look over the UFO literature a little bit more deeply to see if there are UFO cases where people report these types of scannings that predate that technology actually existing, because that would be interesting if we have like 1950s and 1940s cases where people are reporting UFOs, scanning them with lasers, essentially. Talked about how these things were easily shot down, easily spotted and detected. So they weren't using advanced metamaterial and visibility cloaking systems, like I was just talking about, and they were easily shot down. So they didn't have advanced, optical tractor beams or force fields or of any kind. So we talked about this metamaterial that was recovered by TTSA, allegedly a piece of an alien spacecraft that they were analyzing and trying to figure out. I talked about, how the debunkers did their analysis, said, oh, it looks kind of like this slag, which is, a magnesium or bismuth slag that's produced by this industrial process. So that's what we're going to conclude it is. And I said, well, maybe if you made a terahertz mirror a Bragg reflector, a Bragg mirror that would work in terahertz. You could make a chip that you could energize, trap light inside, and then also pump with energy, and it would basically, you could get a mirror, and then a cavity, and then a mirror on either side. And that idea is not originally mine. Again, it comes from this research that I did into the DIRD reports in the Pentagon, and the physicists who are writing papers on this stuff, like Eric Davis, who a lot of the stuff looks like quackery and whatnot, but he does have some gems in there on some of the parts about schemes for generating negative energy or negative mass, using what was called squeezed light or cavity exciton polariton. So you have light inside of a cavity, and then you can squeeze it optically and produce some interesting effects, including the generation of these what are called polariton condensates, where you can condense a bunch of, you can create these particles called polaritons, which are polarized, sections of vacuum energy that's being polarized by the massive amount of energy that's trapped in there in a waveform. And as you have this trapped energy inside the waveforms, you can get these condensed matter states, where the energy in the wave, because of the wave nature and the communication of the energy throughout the system, they coalesce to a common quantum state, and they're able to function as a single wavelength, kind of like a Bose-Einstein condensate or a superconductor. In fact, they've reported superconductivity at room temperature in polariton condensates. So this is real big, important stuff, and it's definitely connected to the UFO file. Talked about these materials, and they use these squeezed vacuum states inside of these layered nanomaterials to produce a laser effect, which actually can warp the fabric of space-time. And using these metamaterials, negative refractive index, light can get out, but it can't get in. And that's different from a full optical cloak, where you can't see in or out past the cloak. That's interesting. I've interviewed scientists who've worked for the CIA and the military on consulted with them on projects of this nature, and those interviews people can find on the channel, in addition to guys like Jack Sarfati, APEC, and stuff. But that idea of the two mirrors, and this comes from Victor Podolsky and Hal Puthoff, of course, and some of his lectures and some of these ideas. So this is where disclosures happened, if it's out there in the scientific community. And I've been working with a bunch of scientists to try to produce materials where we can build, say a metamaterial that can pump out flying magnetic donut pulses, because that's one idea of this optically vorticularly polarized light. Basically, it's like blowing smoke rings of light. And if you can blow smoke rings of light, you might be able to propel yourself with them. It's just one theory. There's been a lot of studies on this, including the NASA studies that have been done into field propulsion physics, going back to the late 1970s, where NASA was trying to understand UFO propulsion and trying to get there. And believe me, the military industrial complex is super interested in this. And mainstream science is kind of holding us back in some senses, but also there's a lot of mainstream science that knows about this stuff. I have a friend that allegedly knows Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I confirm that he does work in the same building and does know him, has interviewed him, has hooked up a lot of people with interviews with him. So I gave him a copy of my presentation here, all this information, and sent it to Neil. And he said he showed it to Neil, and he says, he thinks we don't already know all this stuff. Well, if you know it all, why aren't you all talking about it? Why aren't you like really, getting deep, deep on this 1952 Denmark case where a UFO dropped this metal piece of metal, and people, the military actually went out and recovered this metal and then sent it off to labs for analysis, and it disappeared into this stovepipe black hole of who knows what. And these are real cases. They're documented. They have the declassified documents on, and I think there's a number of cases like this which are legitimate UFO artifacts, or data, or whatnot. And where are those? Where are those studies? And why are we getting the media blowing? The media is like going crazy in this frenzy over this fake balloon stories that this stuff gets shot down. Oh, we've recovered this stuff, but it's nothing compared to the real research that they've done. And the fact that they're shooting these things down with sidewinder missiles and whatnot just shows that they're not like, they have all these other weapons at their disposal they could be using. I don't understand why why would they would use an F-35 to shoot down that Chinese spy balloon, and why not a like, why not like a SR-71 or something like a high flying aircraft that you could just equip with a laser to or they have other technologies. It just looks like they're doing things so like 20, 30 years ago backwards, and not sharing any of the real serious physics or data with the public on what's actually being done, done and behind the scenes. It's like they treat us like school children, or kids that are too dumb to handle the truth about what they're really doing with quantum invisibility cloaks and stuff. I'm surprised we haven't seen any invisibility cloaked spy balloons. But then again, we wouldn't know if these things might have anti-radar. We started anti-radar experiments in the U.S. as early as the early 1950s. Maybe when was the Philadelphia experiment? What year was that? Versus Project Rainbow, which was the CIA's invisibility experiments and stuff. Hey, thanks, man. I've been doing this a long time, so appreciate that. And yeah, guys like the scientist that they hired for this was the guy who discovered nuclear magnetic resonance, which is a key part of how metamaterials and invisibility cloaks work. But yeah, this is the stuff that they have out there. They're able to make metals transparent too, just by rearranging their structure. Another thing that they can do is they can take some of these metals and they actually etch them with they etch the surfaces with lasers, and that gives them different weird effects too, which I thought was super interesting. And then you have cases going back to Project Blue Book, where an extra document was found in J. Allen Hynek's files. J. Allen Hynek was the scientist hired to study Project Blue Book for the U.S. Air Force, and in his files they found this pentacle memorandum, and it talked about this metals research that led to all this stuff about Battelle. And then it turns out Battelle was doing titanium alloys research in 1949, late 1940s, for for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is right where the Roswell debris was allegedly brought after 1947. And, the whole Roswell thing, I think Roswell might have been something more interesting, just because a number of interesting, real serious scientists with, lots of credentials talked about, having been involved with it, including, Robert Sarbacher, who wrote a lot of the early literature on exciton, polariton physics early on. And, this guy was 1950 interview he did, and he told this news reporter that, he was brought out to Roswell and shown some alien spacecraft and saucers and stuff, apparently. So then we have von Neumann, the smartest guy on the Manhattan Project, the human calculator. did all like the Manhattan Project calculations on pen and paper before computers. And he devised von Neumann probes, or self-replicating space probes, in late 1947. And he was the guy with the security clearance and the intelligence that would have been brought out there and shown some stuff. Even have Einstein's staffer saying that she was brought out there and that Einstein was, part of it, or at least shown some stuff. The first Secretary of Defense, who was, created the Air Force and the CIA and the NSA during all this, died under very mysterious circumstances, as did a number of other scientists that we know of around that time, connected to some of these other programs that were going on. But it's just it's crazy when you start getting into all that stuff. That's a lot of rabbit holes, man, and that's where that's what they don't. The government doesn't want people. And you got guys, you got CNN, the mainstream media, saying that, Green Street was covering this on Twitter, saying, we don't want people going down any UFO rabbit holes of, No, I want you to research this stuff all night and prove it wrong, man, because I've been trying for 20 years, and some of this stuff I just can't, and I just keep finding more evidence for it. When I start looking into it, I say, wow, all our top scientists, all our national laboratories are owned and managed by this company, which apparently had all the access to this UFO stuff and has from the start. A company that's one of the experts in metallurgy, where the scientists who worked for this company, told people that they work, other people that they worked on, they were given materials that weren't Russian or Chinese, and that they didn't come from this earth. These guys would later come out and say that stuff to their family members and on their deathbeds and stuff. And then you go back through the literature and you find out, wow, this was a chemist for, Battelle in the late 1940s. He was developing a method to analyze titanium alloys of unknown origin. How interesting. He built a very complicated apparatus to dissolve these pieces of alien spacecraft that couldn't be cut or broken or chipped or destroyed by any known mechanical means. And they would dissolve them in chlorine carbon tetrachloride and measure the off gases to figure out their composition. Rather ingenious for the scientists of the time. Of course, the stuff that we find now with our friend out at Wright-Patterson there, we were talking about at Wright State, present day, who did a year in prison for the classified documents. If I can find him now. He was working on non-destructive methods for analyzing these materials. So they realized, you can measure the off gases and get a sense, but we have to destroy the piece in the process. And I think somewhere along the line, they must have realized that, these alien spacecraft materials can have these 5D memory chips, which we've created these things in our lab. Not me personally, but scientists elsewhere have made these 5D memory chips where they're able to store massive, insane amounts of information on a tiny crystal that's just printed. It's just stored information in the spin states in these of these spin glass. I talked about the spin glasses here. Let me see where the spin glass thing is. Yeah, the spin glasses. So they're able to store. They're able to store a lot of information in these crystal structures called spin glass. And so when they realized that, they were just trying to measure the chemical composition of this, it was just, and that they were destroying all the gigabytes and terabytes of potential information that might be stored on these spin glass photonic chips, they stopped using that method and began using these terahertz scanning methods to analyze and test these chips, which run on these crystal structures that host photonic information relays. So it's like an electronic circuit with capacitors and resistors and inductors and logic gates and what have you, but it's all done with photonics on an atomic level, a much smaller level. And it might be possible even to build these things so that they can, are very integrated and complex, so you can have multiple systems going through one another, all communicating with quantum light and near field electromagnetic radiation that doesn't escape or radiate to the far field. Laser, extra power plant that would mess with the plane's max altitude. It would take time to actually do it. Oh yeah. I was just, hypothetically saying they probably have SDI, stuff that's classified from the Star Wars Defense Initiative. They have space-based weapons like this that are satellites that just charge up with the direct sunlight that they get all day, and they can deploy these. So I don't, yeah, maybe that was just I don't know. I was just thinking, I thought the SR-71, because it's a high altitude plane and goes high, but yeah, you're right. As soon as they modified it, it'd probably mess with the altitude capabilities of it. It's more of a surveillance and reconnaissance plane that's equipped with just cameras and other such equipment. But so the plan to deal with it. So the plan, all right. You want to know the plan? I want to show you guys. I talked about this the other day too, and I want to show people. Go back to 1997, U.S. Air Force, right? Let's. I'm gonna present the screen again so that we can hear the audio. And this is the recorded on 6/24/97. That's June 24th, 1997. And this was the U.S.'s Air Force opening statement to the room. So they held a press conference for the U.S. Air Force to talk about the Roswell incident and their recent investigation into all this. And they noticed, the first thing they couldn't help but notice is that the room was just like packed with reporters and full of people. And the U.S. Air Force is just like this.
I only wish we'd been able to get this number of media here with us when we were trying to tell you about the importance of air power to national security recently. I only wish we'd been able to get this number of media here with us when we were trying to tell you about the importance of air power to national security recently. I only wish we'd been able to get this number of media here with us when we were trying to tell you about the importance of air power to national security recently.
Okay, so I'm a Fed. Someone's a Fed. I'm not a Fed, but I'll tell you who the Feds are. The people that are pushing this weaponized version of reality, where they're saying, these things are aliens. They're working with the Pentagon. I swear, dude, this is like, this is what I've said I think it's a psyop until it's proven otherwise, man. Yeah, no, not me, dude. Obviously I'm not. But listen, when you have people that are on the mainstream media, you have to question their credibility, because the mainstream media is diversion, it's propaganda, it's misdirection, it's anything but journalism and education or information. You really have to be careful of all that, and for them to see, they're trying to get national security, and air security is a key thing to these people. This is a very real threat. And how do they get the American people to take it seriously and pay attention to it? Well, this is how, man. This is it's common sense. It's like they beat a dead horse for 50 years, right? 1947 to 57. That's 50 years. And they realized that we can't win this. We cannot beat these people. It's really literally the poster in Fox Mulder's office that I want to believe. Even if it was a Project Mogul weather balloon, which, I mean, all this recent balloon things, it's really making me question the Roswell thing more, because, I really have a lot of questions about it, but could it have been just so many people just had wrong information, or they had an early version of Mylar that wasn't released publicly yet, and wasn't supposedly invented till 9 years later. Yet they had this the memory foil wasn't Mylar either. Mylar doesn't do what that memory foil did, and Jesse Marcel talking about the head intelligence officer on the Roswell case talking about a material switch and a debris switch. I've always had questions about Roswell, and now that they're having these weather balloon, these UFOs, and the media going crazy over UFOs being shot down and all this, and then it's going to come out that they're really were a bunch of weather balloons or observation or spy balloons or whatever, high tech balloons, Project Moguls. It's just like it just looks like psyop all over again, man. It just looks like maybe these were Chinese balloons. Maybe they were Chinese balloons that we captured through espionage or and re-released ourselves all at the same time to make a diversion. Who knows? You can't. There's something about this that makes me think all this stuff is very much connected. It's quite easy to be duped by the media when they're saying wrong information, and they're saying what you want to believe. Man, heck, I want to believe it's aliens. I wanted to, and I would just be like, yes, just please, just please. Everything's felt fake for the last 2-3 years. Can you please just be aliens? I would love this to be aliens. Please don't just be a high altitude observation, balloon or a weather balloon. I want this to be aliens too, but I'm not going to, sell myself short or sell the scientific community or the my audience short on the reporting here. The reality is that this is, I think this is a created story. Think about this just for a second, right? You want to take all the attention off these conspiracy theories. You really want to restore. You got Jeremy Corbell saying that we can trust the government again, and like they're putting out all this stuff to basically like having a mind. It's a big giant psyop that's going on. He's dude, yeah. Corbell's like, yeah, he should be the first one the aliens take and just get him off this planet, because he's out there telling people that we can trust the military now and that like they're on our side. He's selling this like watered down hippie public, I don't know what the version of he's selling to the public of the UFO reality, but it's a cover up. It's a cover up, and he's being promoted as this big UFO guy who's really angry and knows his stuff about UFOs, but he's an idiot and he knows nothing about like anything. And they set him up to go on here and argue with these reporters and look like he's this big hero for disclosure. And he's just an Operation Mockingbird puppet, man. It's so sad, and it's obvious. It's so obvious, dude. It's like, and they have all these fake, like, they have a whole bunch of people that did kiss his butt because they're like, oh, well, look how popular he is. Look how many views he's getting. And I got to like get this guy. It's like getting, it's like getting on Joe Rogan. If you could get Jeremy Corbell to pay attention to you in ufology, it's just insanity, because it's like a guy that they pulled out and almost like created. Yeah, I'm sitting here like telling people real information, man, and it's getting so drowned out. They're just like muddying the water. As soon as I'm here to he's like the opposite though, man. It's like, see, you have Neil as like this guy who's like this super smart scientist who's, I want my expertise and all this stuff, and I'm going to talk to you like you're 6 years old, and I have to educate you, and because I'm so much more intelligent than you. And Corbell is like this. He's like the guy who it's interesting they picked a guy named Jeremy too, because I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's like there's a couple other Jeremys that I've seen that do good research in ufology, but they create this, they prop this guy up, and he's this UFO tough guy, and this guy who's going after disclosure and stuff, and the karate instructor, and man, like I would love to see that guy actually debate a skeptic, because it's just such a front. I see it for what it is, man. It's like if they had me on to debate a skeptic, like I've debated Mick West before. I'd love to debate him again now that it's been a couple of years. I've been trying to get Shermer on, or get Shermer to do a debate, get me on his show to do a debate with me. Um, it's kind of hilarious watching some of these debunkers and the game that's being played, where it's literally it's a bait and switch for one. So they bait it with the UFO and then switch it for a weather balloon, and then they have this gameplay of cat and mouse where they serve up the mouse and then they send in the cat, whether it's Stephen Greenstreet with Lou Elizondo or in TTSA or Skinwalker Ranch, or whether it's the mouses, Jeremy Corbell, and they just Mick West coming out with Boca and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's like this cat and mouse that they've been doing. They serve up this guy like Corbell, and then just so they can smash him down. So he's like the straw man. It's another intelligence word for it, is the straw man tactic. And the way they do it is your straw man is that's what you pretend the argument is. So when you're debating, you minimize and you reframe the argument into the straw man, and then you beat the crap out of the straw man and claim victory over the it's like if I built a model of Mike Tyson and then beat up the straw man Mike Tyson and said, look, I just knocked out Tyson, dude. That's kind of like the idea behind it, but it's like it's a tried and true method. So it's an informal fallacy. Fallacies are very important in media and public relations, and anytime you're watching anything on the news, you have to understand that fallacies are just the main thing to look out for, because you can just spot the hasty generalizations, the cherry picking of evidence, the attack to the man instead of the attack of the argument, where they call you a conspiracy theorist, or say, oh, don't get sucked down those rabbit holes, and these are tried and true methods of truth obfuscation and sending people off the trail. So you have to be aware that the Pentagon is very invested. I mean, the FBI Twitter files alone should show everyone how much money and effort and time and how serious the FBI takes conspiracy theorists, and disclosure. They do not want people waking up and learning the truth, man. Like you can see that my streams get blocked. This is a super popular topic right now. We got 370 people watching live because this is such a hot topic right now, so they can't really avoid it. But man, I've had people have subscribed to my channel say that I found your channel and I subscribed to it, and then the next day I was unsubscribed and I couldn't find it anywhere, and like I forgot like guys that couldn't find me again for 6 months because they forgot what I was called, and they're like, oh, where was that video? And like I got unsubscribed, and then people that subscribe to me and say that, oh, I haven't gotten any notifications. I don't ever get notifications for your videos or anything. So yeah, please help me undo that. Leave a comment in the comments, not just in the super chat, and also go and smash that like button, because that helps with the algorithm and will help boost this even more. It's crazy when you look at my channel. I literally stayed at 100. I stayed at 99,000 subscribers on my channel for 2 years, and it didn't move. It would not move. And
sorry,
now
I have to interject. It was 109,000 to
Yeah.
000.
It got stuck
for 2 years to the point,
stuck.
And then finally last month it let you jump up to 100,010 to the 0 subscribers.
and I get people that say, "Oh, I've unsubscribed back." That it was stuck at 99,000 2 years ago for like 2 years to 3 years before that, and then I got on Timcast, and that's what finally pushed it. It finally like broke, and they pushed me over 100,000. They had to say, "Okay, you got it." They never sent me my plaque. You're supposed to get a silver YouTube plaque or something in the mail at 100,000. I never got sent that. Maybe I can. I think I can actually go to YouTube and apply and get sent that. So I have to go find out how to do that. But yeah, I was stuck at 99,000. So this channel is shadow banned to heck. They do not want people getting on here because I don't know, man. They got people out here saying it's UFOs getting shot down. Again, they're not talking about the airborne ground penetrating radar systems that are on board. So they have this GPR that Lockheed Martin's been developing. The Chinese definitely have it too. And they can see things underground from the sky using this ground penetrating radar that's aerially deployed. So they're using that to scan, of course, northern Montana and these areas, because northern Montana, a new NSA spy center just went in there, and also a number of ICBM missile silos. So that's what is a big target for spying and intelligence. The U.S. Air Force knows this, and they want they want to start taking it seriously and start getting more money and funding for this. These things are flying over. They're using lasers that scan the land. This is a type of technology that can actually take geometric data and measurements. They can link it up with visual data, combine the two, and make very accurate maps of places. They also scan the digital radio frequencies for nearby RF devices and pick up any kind of signals and save those signals, and they digitally save copies of those signals. So if they happen to be flying over the spy satellite, when your RFID fob goes off, they can pick up that signal and be like, okay, we got a fob number, when was that, and link that technology up. The fact that these things were shot down so quickly and so with such low cost, I mean, not low cost, but low grade technology, a Sidewinder missile, just makes me look at other UFO cases where UFOs have sustained aircraft, anti-aircraft gunfire for over 2 hours, and without any interruption or disruption of the craft. So these things have they're either mirages. I think some of these might, there is technology that can create mirages like this. That technology did not exist in 1942 because lasers weren't invented until like 1961, 1960s. So they couldn't have been what are called Pentagon talking plasma balls. I've talked about these before too. Let's find it on video. Yeah, these endless flashbangs and plasma balls. So this video, you guys can go watch this. It's if you type in talking lasers and endless flashbangs, Pentagon develops plasma tech. So it's basically two lasers, and where the beams cross right here, you'll see there's a laser coming out of this tube, a laser coming out of that tube, and where those beams cross, the air there is charged up so hot that it actually creates a plasma. And they can create a number of these plasmas, and they're able to actually create stunning 3D visual displays using these plasmas. That this was shown off at a Japanese event years back, but they've since classified the technology and pulled it. But there was a company that you can't even find the videos now. I have it saved somewhere, but I don't want to get another strike on my channel for showing, because they have copyrights on all that stuff, and if you show it, they just pull it. But it's basically they create a matrix of these dots in the sky, and they can create Jesus in midair. They can create whatever they want. They can create full pictures. They can program it into a computer and then shine a bunch of these dots in the sky using these lasers, and they can actually make any image that they want in the air. Now they can combine this technology with this so they can actually make it talk. So these things they'll show you in this, where they give a demonstration where they can actually make the plasma, and they can send a audio signal through the plasma so that the plasma ball can appear in front of you and it can talk to you. It can make noise and literally talk to you through the excitations of the plasma that the laser creates. So this technology, I've said, like, well, they've had this for, the Pentagon just showing this now is some guy that just developed it, but there's probably 20 other scientists who developed it separately, and it just disappeared into a black hole before this, probably 20 years ago, probably even, back in the late 1960s when they were first developing lasers, they probably figured out how to do this. And one of the things is the microwave auditory effect. That's a little bit different. That's a microwave frequency that actually triggers your inner cochlea and can beam voices directly in your head. Microwave hearing, so they can blast these sounds inside your head. It's also used in active denial systems to blast noise right to your inner ear. That's just penetrates your whole skull, and you can't cover your ears. And yeah, there's some interesting exploits of that technology as well. But the idea is that they can take they found out this carrier signal is that one frequency that triggers that microwave auditory effect, and then they frequency modulate the audio signal into that so that they can put voices inside your head. So they can put the voice audio signal and then put that on top of the carrier frequency and transmit it directly into your inner ear. The other thing they can do is do it the same idea through the flashbang. So the flashbang's creating this ball of plasma that's appearing in front of you that could be shaped like a wolf's head or a dino beaver or, whatever the heck have you. And, I didn't make dino beavers up either. That was a real thing reported by these people at Skinwalker Ranch, if you look into that nonsense. But all that can be created and faked using technology like this Pentagon talking plasma. Of course, it's cooler to think that it's spirits and, Bigfoot's jumping out of portals and stuff. But, if I was trying to mess with people and run some psychological operations, this is exactly what I would do and how I would do it, with some funky lasers. And let me see about the stunning 3D images laser display. Yeah. Yeah, so they talk about this. This is some of the ones that they can make, right? Where they can put a butterfly in the air or different waveforms. They can create these simple waveforms with the laser and then build them. Yeah, that's some very basic stuff. This one's a little bit more interesting. The nerd alert. Yeah, this is it. This is the video where they talk about this. The Young Turks actually had this on, and I was like, wait a minute. They don't actually show the video. They have it clipped, right? No, here it is. It's in the first part. Right there. Okay, yeah. So this is the company that does it. They're creating that display with lasers in the air, just out of nothing. So this is the 3D display project. This shows in Japanese how they do this and how they create they focus the laser onto these molecules. The molecules are ionized. They give off a light, and they have a 3D scanner that scans the image and then can pulse out these laser focused laser beams, which can draw. So uses the drawing mechanism that draws in the sky using these pulses of laser. And they can create some pretty interesting stuff, of course, dazzling sparkles. But I thought the coolest thing is the Pentagon's figured out how to make these things like a flashbang grenade that will, scare you, make a crazy crackling, sparkling noise, and also give you commands or tell you, I am Jesus. Listen to me. follow. Pick up that axe. You know, I don't know, man. This is just, yeah, the HoloVect is another one. That's another US company that was doing this. It's called HoloVect. They do a slightly different method, I think, for producing it. But yeah, that one was cool. The pulsed laser display, and I forget what the company is called over in Japan that does that. But I first saw it on an old video that's been taken down since. But yeah, I thought that technology is pretty interesting. That one of these UFOs seemed like it could have been this technology, because they said it was, a lot of the pilots who saw this UFO said it looked different shape, you know, from the different perspectives. So you could create these, you know, images that would look different from different perspectives. And they could be these 3D, you know, holograms, or these, you know, produced lasers. Of course, these take a lot of energy to make. I don't know if they'd have a system on board, one of these floating, you know, battery powered or solar powered array. They were solar powered arrays. Yeah, so all those, you'd have to collect a ton of solar light, and then it would burn it up, all that energy up really quickly for these high powered lasers to do this stuff. So these things do take a lot of energy, and would not be ideal for space based, you know, operation, or platform based operation, balloon based, what have you. So yeah, that's an interesting question. But yeah, they're trying to print this in the minds of citizens, you know, UFOs attacking, you know, spy balloons and stuff. So there's a lot of psyops going on involved in this. That's what it's definitely, it's apparent. There's you look at the headlines, there's these they're calling them UFOs. They're not calling them another spy balloon, another drone, another spy drone. They're calling them UFOs. And I think it's part of the Pentagon agenda. Like I said, like they realize you can't beat them, join them. And I know that they have plants, because they planted all kinds of people with the FBI and COINTELPRO, and the amount of money they pumped into this Twitter thing, and trying to influence public opinion there. Why wouldn't they do it for ufology? You got to expect that, like, at least someone out there is a plant, or, you know, working for the pro Pentagon agenda. And just listen to what they talk about and what they cover and what they don't. And it's pretty easy to spot who these people are based on that, if not based on the fact that some of them are getting, you know, massive attention and massive fanfare, and they just get tons of views and tons of attention when they're not putting out real data. It just looks, it's on, yeah, it's all over YouTube too, man. Lots of people psyops, and then other people, what happens is they get excited with the psyop, because the psyop's meant to do that. You know, it's be like, we have the proof of aliens, you know, and it's meant to trigger you. It's meant to get you excited, and so that you share the information too, and that spreads the psyop further. That's how these things work. It's getting people excited about the wrong things. And if you can get them overexcited and stupefied, then they do stupid things, and they spread the stupid, you know, stupid spreads really fast. It's really contagious, you know. When you feel stupid and contagious, it's a real thing. Ask Kurt Cobain. BL has facts. What is that? What is BL? UFOs use what BL has fact. What is BL? HoloVect is a scam. Yeah, they're not as cool as that other company, man. They're using, like, it's just not the same. But the other stuff has an emitter, and I was talking about the way they have these denial systems. So the Pentagon's working on these things. What if they built, like, large scale ones for, you know, denying aircraft? So if a foreign aircraft comes in, they make this Foo Fighter ball appear next to the aircraft and start, you know, making noise or barking, you know, stuff. That would scare me the heck off, you know. If I saw some UFO or some especially you start spreading rumors about Tic Tacs and stuff. Oh, the Lockheed Martin might have a Tic Tac, and then, you know, all of a sudden you see this, you know, elongated sphere, you know, pill-shaped ball of light go flying by you. You'd be like, oh my God, I just saw a Tic Tac, you know? So Well, we've been going for an hour and 14 minutes now. I'd like to open it up to some questions. The Pentagon bot? No, Elon Musk bought Twitter. Is Elon Musk bought by the Pentagon? Oh, I don't know. That's another question, man. I don't know. I wish I knew, but yeah. Oh yeah, Super Bowl, dude. I mean, you could watch some guys playing with balls, or you could watch me. I appreciate that. You think I'm more entertaining than men with playing with their balls. Oh lordy. BL is ball lightning. Okay, yeah. Ball lightning. So was the original question. Now I have to go back to that now. UFO use what BL has. Fact. Yeah, but ball lightning is a EVO, exotic vacuum object, or it's a supercavitated plasma in the sky. So that's another idea is you get to these plasma generation things, right? And that gets into a whole nother realm of what you can do with these plasmas now, right? Now, doesn't it? Because let's get into that. So blasting air. Yes, this one comes up. I mean, type blasting air. So this idea about when you blast air with these laser beams to create these, you can create light. You can create an emitted thing of light, but if you blast tons of laser energy at a bunch of air, you can actually get the air to, create, plasmas, right? But these plasmas can boil the air and supercavitate it. So you actually can, you can create a plasma so quick and so hot that it supercavitates and instantly evaporates the air in front of the craft and creates essentially a vacuum or hollow point ahead of the craft. And this technology you can look up here on the drive in this article called blasting the air in front of hypersonic vehicles with lasers could unlock unprecedented speeds. Well, this technology is very real and is used in supercavitating torpedoes and also ICBMs. A lot of the new ICBM sites that are in northern Montana that these spy balloons were spying on use this technology to reach speeds of Mach 10 plus. So yeah, this is a Mach 6.2 flow on the strong norm versus conical structures, and they create these conical shock structures in front of the model, and they're able to reduce that bow shock by considerable amounts so that, you can reach very, very high speeds with these plasma aerodynamics technologies. So yeah, just applying these to aircraft wings and nose cones and stuff, it's a whole nother level of technology. And of course, the problem is, it creates a lot. It takes a lot of energy to do it. So they're trying to create. They've also tried to increase the performance of wind turbines using this technology. The discharges on the leading edge of the wind blades. That's pretty interesting. I never thought about that before. So this firm is called Physics, Materials, and Applied Mathematics Research, and it's a firm that is owned by this guy, Kevin Kremeyer. This is pretty cool stuff. These guys, this is their website right here. People want to go check that out. I'm going to post it right here in the chat. Oh, hey, you're late. Well, what'd you miss? Well, we talked about these 3 UFOs that were shot down, and they all turned out to be spy balloons or spy drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, not UAPs. Sadly, they were not aliens. I would really prefer them to be aliens, or hope that we can, obviously it's kind of hard to shoot down aliens who have invisibility cloaks, warp drives, and force fields and other technologies that we're just beginning to learn about and discover with our human technology. I talked about some of that. Got into detail about that, but I talked about some of the sensors that they were finding on, or would be finding, or might be finding, or probably will be finding on these balloons. Because if I were to design a spy balloon, I would certainly equip it with aerial-based ground penetrating radar, GPR, to see underground, look for sites underground, see if, is there a missile silo hidden underneath that cornfield? Is there a NSA spy center in this town somewhere? Where's their data center? Maybe I'd have some digital frequency memory technology aboard to, sit there and listen in on all the frequency waves that are all the RF frequencies and record any radio frequency transmissions as digital memory, so that, if they have unsecured RF devices, they can capture and use those signals, or find ways to jam those signals when they know what frequency they're operating on. So it's just standard intelligence collection stuff that would probably be on these blimps. Again, one of the UFOs was spotted using a laser. So the green laser came in a big long line and scanned the whole field, or scanned all the buildings, and were scanning the ground from one of these UFOs. This was in one of the reports, if you read it. And I said, well, this is laser range finding. This is distance measurement, where they use lasers and optics simultaneously to create a visual map of a entire area. They can use these lasers for that. Very common technology. It's been around since late 1960s, when they used it on Apollo 11 to measure the distance to the moon in the laser range finding experiment that NASA did. And the first one, the first UFO here, this first balloon actually crashed or was shot down right off the coast in U.S. waters on the ice up there in the top of Alaska, the dead top of Alaska, a place called Deadhorse, Alaska. Hey, thank you, Taryn Art, for the super chat. Appreciate that, man. And oh wait, hold on. Here's where this. I got another one here. I don't know if I saw this one. So we have a $20, 20 pound super chat. I watched a video by C.W. Lemoyne, former fighter pilot, explaining why they used an AIM-9X. Basically, it has a frag warhead that will do limited damage because of altitude, cold air. You'll get a good contrast for a heat seeker. So, yeah, I don't know the technicals on missiles. I'm not a military or missile guy. Oh, so that's a Sidewinder. Yeah. Yeah, these things have been around since the 1950s, man. But it's a basic propulsion system where they have a vectored tail exhaust that's equipped to a thermal sensor, a sensor that uses heat-seeking sensor that will do tail vectoring. Yep. Yeah, I mean that's good enough. I guess maybe that the AM Sidewinder was the right tool for the job, I suppose. Maybe could find some other way to take the thing out. This was where we're talking about better ways of how would you? So yeah, I'm not an expert on all that stuff. So I mean, if you are an expert on what would you use to take down the balloon, please post it in the chat. I'd like to see, if anyone has, how would you take down that spy balloon so that you could safely recover it and you wouldn't have to spend tons of time and money picking up pieces off the ocean floor? Is there any way to go in with a net and capture it and, commandeer it or take the thing down? I mean, how would you have done it safely? We should have realistically, as scientists, we should be jumping on this and saying, well, you have a crisis here. There's a need. The military has a need for someone who can create a technology now to safely take a spy balloon out of the air over, people's houses and stuff. So that's why they allegedly waited for this thing to go out to the Atlantic Ocean and then shot it down once it got off the coast, right? So let's, yeah, think about super high tech is it, that's the idea, man. And the super high tech's about the idea. What is technology? It's a means to an ends. So we have the ends goal, the end result that we're looking for is a safe way to remove a weather balloon from 40,000 to 60,000 feet. So 60, this thing's floating and it's 40,000 to 60,000 feet. We need a safe way to capture that and bring it down and get all the electronics on board without water damage, without impact damage, without blowing them up with an AIM sidewinder missile. And that's what I'm talking about here. And if you can create a company and a product to do that, right, dude, I'm on board with you, man, because we're getting defense contracts right away. So maybe let's do that. Let's come up with a plan to take down and not kill these things, but safely intercept and disrupt and commandeer these things. And also, like just like the drones, right? So they have those the guns that shoot down the drones, right? Have you seen the drone catcher? This thing, this guy's got this anti-drone friggin' gun. Look at the size of this thing, and it shoots a heat-seeking net. So this thing comes out, and the net comes out, and it intercepts the drone and can capture it safely without damaging it. So they have these systems available to capture these things, and then they even train eagles. They're even training eagles to grab these drones safely so that they know exactly where to grab them so that they won't cut themselves or hurt themselves, and they can snatch them out of it. So they got falconers, training their birds to snatch drones too. So yeah, that was pretty cool. The bird capture. Yeah. So they have that stuff, and I thought that was an interesting idea. When you have we have these ways to shoot down drones, we should have more ways to shoot down and intercept these spy balloons. And if you can come up with a technology to do this, you might be sitting on a multi-million-dollar defense contract next year. So yeah, that eagle was badass. That was a eagle, armed eagle army, anti-drone eagle army. We could train a team of eagles to take down the balloons. Yes. Yeah, the gondola alone was 7,000 pounds. Yeah, well, that's a problem, huh? Ooh. Yeah, so that's like a specialized interceptor, man. You'd almost have to like blow up the balloon and then you have parachutes on it. Like, you have this net thing that takes out the balloon. I don't know, man. People who say there's a better way don't know how big those balloons actually are. All right, so let's look at the spy balloon getting pulled out of the ocean. Ocean recovery. So let's I've seen some perspectives of these guys pulling the waste up of this. I want to see some pictures of that. It's South Carolina. This thing was recovered. All right, come on. I hate how there's no pictures of this actual spy balloon, but they got ads for other political crap up. Let's go see this. So spy balloon recovery team. Yeah, I didn't think it was that big in the picture of it. 7,000 pounds. Now, this looks like carbon fiber rods, some PV paneling on there. This is just pieces of the actual balloon itself. So it looks like a plastic. Yeah, I'd be curious to know exactly how, if this is for reference, one of these frames right here, okay? I'd say that's about 36 to, it's definitely not longer than 48 inches in the cross member, maybe 48, 36 to 48, so 3 to 4 feet. on that side. And if that's for some perspective, let's get a high def picture of the balloon. Chinese spy balloon, and kind of get an estimate on the size of this thing. Yeah, so here it was right there. It has a number of these cells. So that cell piece is there's about 8 of those, right? 8 of these things, 9 of them maybe. Is that like invisibility tech, man? So maybe there's 8 on each side. So if there's 8 of those on each side, then something in the middle. Let's go back to that other picture of this. So that's 8 of those. So this contraption, about how much, this probably weighs like 40 pounds. I'd say 40 pounds tops. So that's all carbon fiber rod and a couple sensors, and everything's built to be like super light. That thing probably weighs 40 pounds. Times 8 of those, times 16 of them, because there's 8 on each side. That's going to be like 4,000, 7,000 pounds, dude. I don't know if where are you getting that number that these things weigh 7,000 pounds? It's 200 feet in diameter was the size of that balloon. So calculate how big 200 foot, how many pounds can 2,000 foot, how heavy was it? Is there any estimates on this? How heavy was the Chinese spy balloon? At least 300 to 400 pounds of equipment. So you're like off by a factor of 10, bro, with your number there, 7,000. 200 feet tall. But again, these surveillance blimps are crazy too. These the other surveillance blimps they got. I want to talk about some of the camera technologies that they have inside these things. This is called the Argus. They basically took a whole bunch of cell phone cameras out of an iPhone and built a spider eye, like a big web of them in a grid. And it has this crazy optical capability where they can just take a wide image of this whole city, and they can zoom in to any one of these cameras and get like a incredible detail within this image. It's like a 7 gigapixel image, something ridiculous. And they're able to apply all these, target tracking. So they're able to track different targets with these computer-based algorithms that are able to, identify and track different moving targets within the image and the picture. So they're able to take like detailed, data and watch things for hours. So this is one of these blimps. They have these things deployed on blimps. But imagine you could have one of these on your spy balloon and just be taking like constant data of the site or whatever you're flying over, and you'd be able to have like a full detailed operation of day-to-day work at your NSA spy facility in northern Montana, say. If you wanted to be like, all right, well, is that a red Camry? Is that a tan Ford F-150? And who's that belong to? Where are they going? Where do they go before, during, after work? And all that kind of stuff. Man, there's a lot of comments here. We got a lot of people watching tonight, man. How's everyone doing out there? I don't see anyone. A lot of new faces in the crowd, guys. Thank you for jumping on and joining us tonight. But this is just to give you some idea of the capabilities that we have with the tech, Oh, the travel distance and speeds and the control system. So apparently this thing could change direction too. I talked a little bit about that on my last stream where they have just simple ballast that can fill up or deflate and that can change the altitude of the balloon so that it can go up or down, and that will let it hit different air currents or different areas so that, like, say that they know the air currents traveling one way, it can go up to 60,000 feet or drop down to 40,000 feet to ride a different air current. It also has a little bit of maybe onboard propulsion with it. I don't know if it had some propellant. They use a jet propulsion with some propellant. I don't know what it had on it, but again, if I had one and I wanted to easily maneuver it, it's just about studying those airflows and those air patterns, and then getting a balloon that can ride up and down, to sort of control where it's going to be within those air patterns. And it would be better to try to find ways to ride those airflows more gradually than actually bringing on board. I don't know how much propellant, because the more propellant you bring, the more it weighs down your spy balloon. And I don't know that we have ion thrusters or ion drives. They may have equipped it with like a lifter effect drive, which uses solar power. This thing did have solar powers on, solar panels on it. So assuming it has solar power, they could be using, Biefeld-Brown effect ion thrusters to propel it through the air, in addition to the altitude control that it has. Yeah, I'd love to know more about that and the science involved. And but again, if I was going to do it, yeah, I'd probably set it up with some ion thrusters for some basic, push off. So you can do a little bit of push if you need to get, but it would be more about getting into, the jet stream or wind stream that's appropriate, like the one that was bringing these things up and across. And they go very slowly. They just float in the wind currents. And the idea is for it to be really high altitude, but also have it be, hard to detect. It's not like these things were bright orange, The solar was the control. Yeah, that would make sense. But what was the actual propulsion method that these things used? You had people saying, "Oh, there's no visible forms of propulsion." That just means there's not a propeller or there's not, visible propulsion thing on it. But Biefeld-Brown effect is. It's not just Biefeld-Brown. There's been a lot of people using ion wind propulsion for a long time. You can go back to, the 1913 with Luigi Rota and Edward Farrow, who were building aircraft back in, 100 years, over 100 years ago, that used ion thrust type drives with electromagnetic ion wind thrust drives. So, yeah, this stuff's not exactly new. It's just a little bit obscure and not, it's also a little bit dangerous and not really super wasn't well understood up until, the 1950s when Andrew Bonson, a local air conditioner manufacturer who had made a lot of money selling air conditioners in the early heydays of air conditioning in the 1950s, decided to use some of the extra money he made to fund anti-gravity research, and hired a bunch of scientists who he brought down to his lab and funded back in the 50s to try to learn about anti-gravity and run experiments with it and build some stuff. And apparently some projects in the U.S. Air Force and whatnot came out of these projects, because we have guys like Mark McCandlish who talked about being shown things in the military that we're building and working on these types of things. Of course, the military was interested in a lot of the research that was going on there. And I go into other types of propulsion that's been researched over the years by different aerospace companies and the military alike. Even interviewed, guys like Mike Gamble, who worked for Boeing on some of these systems. You can find those on altpropulsion.com or the APEC conference, which is a conference that ran for about 2 years. And we interviewed a lot of NASA guys from DARPA, NASA, propulsion scientists, MIT scientists, and other guys. And I've put their information out there. People who worked for a lot of interesting programs, a lot of research that was done. You know, we've been digging all this research that up and, you know, replicating the experiments, talking to the scientists, and trying to declassify and put this information out there for public to have ready available access to it. It's all unclassified or declassified, and it's just about a public education and outreach program so that people don't get sucked in by charlatans and frauds, and kind of get a better, you know, understanding of where the field's actually at and where they can find good sources of information and real scientists to learn from, listen to, and talk to. So in any case, yeah, thanks, man. It's taken 20 years. I've gone down a lot of these bad rabbit holes and listened to a lot of bad researchers and come out of that and learned a lot over the years. And I think that UFO research, if that's what you want to call it, is so Alaska. What's up with Alaska? There might be some ICBM sites in Alaska. I know there's a number of them in northern Montana, but Alaska's like the entry point. You know, it's just where the airflows go. A quick recap of this and of the weekend is that, you know, we had Friday, the first UFO got shot down over the ice in a place called Deadhorse, Alaska. That one was apparently recovered from out on top of the ice, and it was a balloon. Saturday, another UFO gets shot down by NORAD over the Yukon in Canada. That one gets recovered. And then a third one gets shot down over Michigan, and that one gets. So I believe these events are all related, including the Chinese spy balloon that was shot down. It was spotted over Montana and then shot down later over South Carolina. I believe these are all related to a similar operation where they've released a number of these different balloons. You know, they probably released 4 or 5 of them, hoping that one will be able to hit the right targets and go over the right areas to get the right data that they're looking for. The type of data that they're looking for, of course, is ground intelligence, ground-based satellite, not just satellite, but detailed visual imagery, including geometric data of, you know, the landscape. So they're able to. One of the UFO reports is that these UFOs were scanning the entire ground with green lasers and shining this laser, which swept over the entire ground and scanned a lot of stuff. So that's a laser rangefinder, and that's used to measure distances, and it's correlated usually with cameras and a computer that can link up optical data with the laser data to get accurate measurements on ground targets. That combined with satellite-based ground penetrating radar, which can actually uses radar to see things that are underground. If there's underground missile silos or underground bases or underground tunnel systems or anything like that, there's these technologies which are developed to see those types of things and collect data on those. And then you also have digital radio frequency memory, which are the electronics radio scanners, which will scan for any kind of RF signals or, you know, people. So they're taking data like from this camera that I showed with the eye in the sky, where they can have this image, a visual, and they can scan in, and they probably scan in right on the NSA spy facility, and they're able to see, you know, who's there in the morning, where the cars came from, and be able to trace those cars back to where they came from. So then now they have data on where the NSA employees live, what kind of cars they drive, and then the DRFM technology can link up. So when they get out of their car and they hit their lock button, that digital, your car thing creates a digital a radio frequency, and that gets picked up by the spy satellite, and they can, oh, so now they can go unlock your car. Now they can lock and unlock your car because they got your key, or they got your fob pass that allows you to access in the building, and they were able to pick up that RF frequency off the fob swipe. So you have all these technologies. This is the kind of spy, high-tech spy gadgets that they're using to look and spy on us actively. And these are the technology that they're sending over to try to, in the hopes that they reach their targets and can collect some data, and then these things beam back the information. So of course they put out the story in the mainstream media that these are UFOs. That gets picked up by a lot of these leaders in the UFO community, and then the Pentagon and other people, debunkers, can later come out and discredit these people further and say, ha, look at the conspiracy theorists and the people who research UFOs. They're all this stupid. They're all don't know what they're talking about, and you shouldn't listen to any of them because none of them have any anything valuable to say or any valuable information to share. And that's what they want you to believe about all of us, especially guys named alien scientist out here on the internet. Who the heck is aliens? Who calls himself alien scientist? That guy's totally a UFO conspiracy theorist. He's crazy. Don't listen to him. So that's the big idea. I think it's being used in multiple ways. So the Pentagon is probably responding to an actual threat, using the UFO narrative to prop up again publicity and public support for enhanced air defense, because now we're all scared that we're under attack from UFOs. That's a heck of a lot more scary than spy balloons, but spy balloons are still pretty scary. So let's get all these programs started to do research into this. That gives the Air Force more money, gives them more funding for air defense. I talked about how they opened up the 1997 U.S. Air Force press conference with the remark, that, hey, if we could get this many people to pay attention to real, funding issues for the U.S. Air Force, wouldn't that be great? So the Air Force saw that, the media goes crazy over UFOs, and they were, how do we get this much, attention and funding for our own research? How could we possibly, get a hold of the UFO community? Well, we'd have to create some pundits. We'd have to create some friendly forces. We'd have to find someone who was like someone who was a karate instructor who's struggling to get by working as a maintenance man in his parents' apartment complex, and we can prop him up to be the best UFO expert, and we'll put him on. We'll get him. He gets Bob Lazar. He gets super famous. We'll get him on all these big podcasts. Again, Bob Lazar, I have so many other scientists that are so much more credible and have so much more physics and knowledge and information to share than Bob Lazar. I mean, we'd be happy to get into any number of these scientists. I talked about a number of them, like our buddy who did a year in federal prison for just bringing a couple documents home with him. Never mind, leaking the location and details on the most classified secret alien installation on the planet. It's just, I think it's very telling when there's a psyop going on and you're trying to figure out who's in charge of it and who's the guy that they're using to run it. And it's very telling when you get a guy who doesn't have any real talent for making good investigative journalism films or documentaries, and instead, gets a ton of support. Someone's helping him with a lot of this. You can tell that he's getting a lot of help from a lot of people. You can't do this by yourself. And when you start questioning how he why is the Pentagon, trusting Jeremy Corbell with this information? You can't be trusted with this classified information, but we can give it to Mr. Corbell, who can then give it to you. And now Corbell's getting all the inside UFO scoops right from the Pentagon, and he was on this UFO story this weekend from day one. And it's weird that it all happened in 3 days over the weekend. It's like they know that my schedule is that I have to watch my kids from Friday to Sunday. It's almost like it was planned, because the first one happened literally at 4:00 on Friday, which is when I picked my kids up. It's like they knew my schedule and knew I'd be out of commission, and they could get a hold of the story and take the reins on it before I had time to even put my shoes on. I mean, I was just researching this for like 2 hours. I didn't have time all weekend. I was just hanging out with the kids. 2 hours ago, I just started, throwing together all the research and into this to try and put something together. But, I got 20 years of research before that about all the technologies and stuff. So I'm good at throwing that stuff in. But when you get like a guy who gets fed these leaks before they happen, and he's just on top of these big stories, one after the other, and spreading aliens, and the bunkers are gonna go, we're winning and we're crushing these debunkers, but you're not debating any of the debunkers, and the debunkers and even the real researchers in ufology are, laughing at you if they're not crying, because they know that the game, you're either playing the game or you're being played as part of the game, because this is all a game to obfuscate the truth. This is what's called counterintelligence. Okay, the very point of counterintelligence is to stop you from learning anything real. Like it's basically to mind fuck you. Is the point of counterintelligence. It's to completely psyop you and mind fuck you. And if you don't realize, a guy who calls his podcast Weaponized and wears a shirt that says mentally ill on the podcast is not trying to mind fuck you. Like, come on. It's so obvious. I would love to have him debate me for even a short time. It's just crazy how they hype this up as aliens, and it's just a bunch of spy balloons, and the Air Force is just going to use this to debunk the conspiracy theorists, make all the conspiracy theorists look like idiots who can't do research, and all our best journalists aren't real journalists, and they're just a bunch of people trying to sell opinions or stories. And it's a straw man tactic. I talked about that, how they're going to use this as a straw man tactic to attack the conspiracy theorists, make the UFO researchers and all this stuff look dumb, and then they're going to use it to prop up air defense. It's all about the Pentagon agenda at the end of the day, and the fact that this all meets every single one of those criteria. The BBC would never have me on, and I would never go on mainstream media. I don't think I could ever do it. I would love to debate the skeptics, but what's up? Sorry.
One of the great ironies about the whole situation is that this is the exact thing that the Avro Arrow was designed for.
Yeah, isn't that funny? They create this UFO program in the military to deal with this, and this is the exact thing it was built around, and then boom, it happens. Well, it is an existential threat, so it's not like, it's just completely out of the blue or anything. It's like, well, it's not like they made an alien office. It's like the aerial threat office, so it's to slam more money at stuff, and it's to get more, Pentagon money for this stuff too. And yeah, clear your mind, and people can. I'm not a debunker, man. I'm not here to say that there's no UFOs, there's no aliens here. I'm just here to say that, if there was and we shot one down, you wouldn't hear about it on mainstream TV. It wouldn't make the news, dude. If it's making the news and it's out there in mainstream TV, it's a psyop until proven otherwise. It's just how you have to approach everything in this, post-disclosure world. The game is up, man. It's like they can only run psyops so much, And there are a number of people, a growing number of people in the population who are aware of these things and are aware of the tactics that are used. And man, a great way to do this is even if you had a real UFO event, what I would do is I would make a bunch of these fake UFO events and publicize those. So there might be I say there might even be a real UFO event, fifth crash or whatever that, they're using all this to cover up, and that we'll never hear about that, because that's how psyops work.
Sure, I got an idea.
Don't you
Yeah.
think it's kind of weird that we spend billions of dollars on trying to find intelligent life, and then once intelligent life comes to our planet, we shoot it down? Like,
Right. That's our first step. That's it.
And then you have this Chinese balloon. Why not make it clear plastic? Why does it have to be white? Like clear plastic, then nobody would have seen it, you know?
Yeah. All right.
So
Or
it's just a lot of things that just don't add up.
So I think the Chinese sent the balloon.
it may have been clear plastic. Well, it's not. It's pretty white, but it's not like a white, translucent plastic. It's semi-opaque.
Yeah,
and it might
and
even look more white in that.
to see, but it could have been clear, and it's not that hard. And the second thing, like the third thing is, you said it's like 200 pounds. It took them like a couple of days before they shot it down because of, it might be a hazard to people. Well, it's 200 pounds, and with like a 200 diameter, like like it would just like fall down really slowly. It wouldn't cause a hazard. It's just 200 pounds.
Well, I mean, if it was a 200-pound lithium-ion battery, I'd be kind of scared of that falling on me, because then it explodes.
I think they could have, like, there is a lot of empty land where this thing went over, but for whatever reason I think they wanted that to leave it there just to create a hype for the people, like just surveilled or
let it fly over the whole country first.
Well, and then they got the media to call it UFOs and report that they're shooting down UFOs. That's the, I mean, the media is easy to dupe, though. It's understandable why they would run with a story like that, especially. But who started that rumor? Because someone had to pass that story to the, NORAD shot the second one down, and the military shot the first one down. So they had to have, made that press release, and why would they would call it a UFO or UAP right away? It's kind of curious, man. And yeah, so the helicopters can't fly above 7 kilometers. You got fighter jets and spy planes can go about 18 to 28 kilometers, but this thing was like 17 to 42 kilometers. So it's a little bit higher than you can kind of get with your top spy planes and fighter jets, these high altitude balloons. But
I just think they left it up in the air too long for a spy balloon. Like, why would you want the other side, for 4 or 5 days to have information? Like, you should have been
The Chinese were trying to get us to use some classified.
It was almost like Biden was working with them for a psyop to prove they could do it.
yeah, maybe they were baiting us to try to see what we use. Because I was talking about how I would shoot this thing down, and people were talking about that.
Kind of odd that
Yeah, it'd be easy.
it appeared and then the earthquake happened. So I don't know what the link is, but there has to be something. Like, just like the second they shoot this thing down, like a 7.8 magnitude earthquake happens, on the other side of the world. It's like, did they kind of instigate that somehow? Like, I don't know.
Well, right before that massive earthquake, I don't know if you saw the photo of the giant red cloud thing. And we've noted before on previous streams that before major earthquakes, you'll often see ball lightning and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Well, this one was pretty distinctive, let's put it that way.
Yeah, Earth lights or whatever they call it.
Lake prediction. Go look at Dutch sense.
And plus,
Yeah,
we had a lot of sun activity lately. It's caused.
I can light a cigarette with a laser, man. If you can ignite tobacco, you can burn through,
Yeah.
polycellulose.
That's a good point.
If
If they can shoot down a drone, they could handle thin plastic.
What if they're like setting up when, what if it's real UFOs that are coming in, but now they're calling it like spy balloons and this and that?
Well, that's what I said. It could be UFO invasion, and they could be covering it up with spy balloons. We could be, at war, and the media would never let you know, and they'd be selling you this fake news story.
I think the Chinese are testing our air defenses.
Okay, but if we're at war, like, has anybody been affected? I haven't, so I don't know, like, what is the war? It's just, it doesn't make sense.
People would film that.
we
Well, not a
won't
hot war yet, just
and then-
preparations.
I don't know, like,
So
I
it's
don't
just
know.
preparations for war.
If you were to work at one of these facilities, you might be a target. But if you're not working there, then you're not affected by it. And if these things are not affecting you directly today, but if they use one of these DRFM scanners to steal your electronic keys or something, then that might be dangerous. So I don't know. It's I know it doesn't affect us.
hopefully they steal, like, my Bitcoin wallet and they fill it up or something like that. If that's the whole thing. Like, what if they're doing good? How do you know? Like, nobody. I don't think a intelligent species from interstellar space.
We do the same thing or more invasive methods for intelligence collection too. So I mean, we're not completely innocent of spying and doing stuff like this ourselves. I mean, we have high altitude reconnaissance aircraft that are equipped with some of this equipment. We have satellites that have some pretty fancy equipment.
They literally make all the chips in China. They can get all this from your phone.
One of the Air Force commercials said they launch 2 satellites every month. So imagine how many's up there. Must be enormous.
A lot of those are CubeSats, though, and honestly, a lot of them are like student projects.
From the Air Force?
It's actually pretty cheap these days to make and launch your own satellite. They make them in little cube format, so you can stack a whole bunch of them and you launch them all at the same time.
Right. I'm thinking these are like, I got the impression these were military. I mean, like spy satellites, but maybe you're right for some of them.
So I'm not talking about processor chips. I'm talking about every other electrical component on your motherboard is made in China, pretty much.
Yeah, they keep wanting to spy on everything. So
the defense have called us attention to that. We need you. They've actually put a couple billion towards U.S. manufacturing of chips to bolster chip making because of all the Chinese chip problems.
That won't be ready for years, though. TSMC has only recently started.
We're 20 years behind, and we sold out a lot of our defense contracts and manufacturing to China because it was cheaper over the years. And there were all these military and defense contractors that were just trying to save a buck and acting as CEOs in the business sense rather than intelligence planners, and they really doomed our nation. And a big part.
I'll tell you, it's going to look really, really dumb if you lose Taiwan because they own semiconductors.
Isn't it like Taiwan and the Philippines and Korea, something like that?
China wants it bad. That's
what happened to all the semiconductor facilities we used to have?
Those are outdated.
Well, the thing is that the fabs have to be made for the size that you're actually fabricating. So, I mean, if you want to build something from the 80s, then the equipment might still be around. I'm being facetious, but
yeah. So, I mean, if you have like a 22 nanometer process, the 12s won't be stable, and it won't be stable enough for 12 nanometers.
They're down to 7 now.
Are they down 7?
You need much more accurate equipment in order to make it.
Right. I thought it was just the lithography, though, not everything else. But
okay. Yeah. So
this is every aspect of it because you're literally removing like singular atoms at this point. It's crazy.
Yeah, TSMC is in Taiwan, and they make all ARM and AMD processors. And Intel makes them in the U.S., but they can't get that low yet.
We're at the point where we can't make them much smaller on a 2D scale because we get quantum tunneling issues. So what they're doing is that they're making it 3D, so it has to change direction.
I don't know. I've been hearing that since the 90s.
Well, it's super hard to make, and it's already a silicon lottery. When they make
since the 90s that the tunneling's a problem since then, but they still keep making it smaller.
Well, the government military usually uses old processors because they're when they're thicker. It sounds dumb, but they don't.
No, that's what I thought. That's what kills me about how they say they can't get to the moon. It's like,
Well, like the processors that we're using,
processors.
Unless you're paying out the nose, you're getting the defective ones. Because it's only as precise as we can manage, right? So, oh yeah, this section of the chip doesn't work, so we're just going to cut that section off and just call it another number and sell it for cheaper. And it's like that for graphics cards and CPUs.
I would think it's like, a Pentium 4 would be plenty fast enough for, hell, they did it on what's a calculator now. So, well, for that matter, we can send a cell phone.
Even if you have two identical chips, they're still going to run at different speeds, and one will have like slightly better performance for overclocking. So it's always a lottery at the end of the day,
right?
Because it's not perfect, and it's impossible
I'm just
to make
saying,
something
computing power for just the moon landing. It's like it's bullshit that they say that they can't get there because of the electronics.
So the Army has banned all the Chinese DJI drones from use in Army things, and also hike vision cameras are banned from all government, military, and other federal facilities, security facilities, because on the hike vision cameras there was this advanced settings of platform access, and way buried deep in the settings and the configuration settings for all their cameras. All their IP cameras have this call home function on a chip built into them. So it would connect to this Amazon server. So they had to take all these hike vision cameras out of federal facilities because they were trying to call home to this Amazon server and share the feeds with Chinese intelligence.
This is nothing new. I remember several years ago, I think it was server racks that they found out the Chinese added another chip that was the size of like a grain of rice that wasn't part of the specification that the U.S. government purchased, and obviously it was for spying. And this was maybe a decade ago. So this is nothing new.
You got green and sand
I want to switch gears back to the spy balloon and keep it focused on a little bit.
Yeah.
But what is so we have the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, right? It's bigger than the CIA, and it does funding wise. And they launch all the spy satellites out of Vandenberg Air Force Base.
It's like 10 times bigger, isn't it?
And they have tons of funding because they build all these spy satellites, and they collect the actual intelligence, and they run a lot of the spy plane operations and intelligence collection. So they're like the collector service of the recon, office. But then a lot of that intelligence, like we talked about this ground penetrating radar, the lasers that it can scan the ground with to look at the stuff underground, the laser rangefinders they can use to map and measure and do scans of the area with. These were reported on these Chinese spy balloon cases that were recent. So we have a National Geospatial Intelligence Office. This was formed in 2003. Before that, it was known as the National Imagery and Mapping Agency, or NEMA. Now it's NGA, or the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. But I was just wondering, does anyone know what China's equivalent of this office is? I mean, Chinese, government obviously has one of these.
Like a military version of Google Earth, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Google Earth, but for military and way better.
Right. Probably updated live half the time. We need it.
Yeah, and it's
I think I heard something like that. We call it like UAPs, or they call it what is it, weather condition, or like weather condition phenomena, something like that. They name it a little bit different. They don't call it UAPs or unidentified. They call it unidentified weather conditions.
I just want to point out that people can get access to some of that. If you get like CIA offices or intelligence offices, they're always blocked out on Google Maps and Street View and stuff like that. There's a site called Crypto.me, which keeps archives of all these unredacted, so you can go and do street views of all the intelligence facilities. And it's
I
like
heard the military gave Google their mapping software. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I thought Google used
to integrate all those pictures.
yeah, they have integrations too. Like I think you can download actual, like, I don't know if it's on here. You might have to go into deep web and find some other stuff, but you can actually download like new maps and server maps that are like there's people that pirate them from the military maps. And
really? Yeah, I was wanting to get like see what the highest resolution really is. I'm sure it's way better than Google.
You can get some sites you can zoom in really for there's more data on a lot of that stuff, but a lot of it you only get so much satellite. You have to send a balloon or a recon plane over.
I noticed about 10 or 15 years ago when it first came out, it was way more detailed than it is now.
This is actually
for just my house.
This is actually one of the rare occasions where I'm going to praise people at Google, because several years ago, back when they were working on computer vision, they had a major protest within the company because they didn't want to create, drones that would go around killing people.
Didn't want to be evil.
So Google started.
They didn't want to be that evil anyway.
Yeah.
At least some of them. So I don't know if they're still working there. I kind of doubt it. But the people who stood up there, good job.
Yeah, and how many are we sure none of these balloons are Russian? I mean, we haven't determined. I think we've determined that they were all balloons or spy drones of some kind. I don't think they were all confirmed Chinese, though.
At least that we know of.
So
maybe we only know about the balloons.
They're trying to get us to use some kind of,
or maybe the balloons are the distraction. Maybe there's other mapping going on that's like stealth, and we're focused on the balloon. Why they might have other.
They're trying to get us to shoot it down with some kind of classified weapons that they don't know about.
Well, these guys will have you thinking that they're psychic spies spying on you with their minds and with remote viewing. But if they
I was thinking more like the active camouflage for aircraft.
Well, look, they can see you with your Wi-Fi now, so let's be real. Where's your router made?
Yeah, that's what they don't know.
This is where most colors come from.
I think they wanted us to use Wi-Fi or laser beams or something to shoot it down, something they don't know about, to figure out what we might use. But we just waited and shot it down with a missile instead because we're.
When they said they were jamming the communications, that's what I was thinking about. So they were probably using a laser beam to communicate with some other satellites we don't know about and send the information back.
Yeah, it could be.
While we think they're using a radio signal, here they are, satellite to satellite laser communication. That's already a known thing. So
I think they're waiting for us to harp it or freaking use lasers or anything Jeremy's been talking about.
Oh man, can you turn your volume? It's you can barely hear you.
Yeah, they're probably figuring out seeing what we're going to use to shoot it down too. But I don't know. Like I said, that there's other ways, and if you can create one or come up with one to safely commandeer these things and intercept them, then you got a military contract worth a couple $1 million because
well, I think we have ways to
study us too. Set up all of our alarms, see what we're doing, see what sites light up.
I think there's 1,000 ways to
become active.
Two guys once that created this lens, and it could burn through things just by like the sun. Like they reflect it back on anything, and it like it.
That's why it was white.
Like it just simple glass. Like a lens, a big old lens.
Yeah, it's easy. We're at least when we start studying.
High tech stuff to.
Did we lose you?
No, I'm still here. I'm trying to find any more. It's hard to get anything on this, and of course, the military is not going to probably give a lot of answers, and they're going to wrap it in secrecy as usual and stuff. So it's just funny. You read all these reports on it, and they're just so dumbed down and uninformative about anything that it's just hard to believe that these people are real journalists trying to report on this stuff. It's like they're kindergarten teachers trying to dumb down things from class or something. Man, it's pretty bad.
Oh yeah, for some reason I was having bunch of times when your stream kept stuttering, and then some other people, only one or two people said they had the same thing. I went to my cell phone, same problem, not using Wi-Fi. Then I did a rebroadcast of cryptos, and people were saying the same thing there, but not as much on your channel. But when I went to Streamlabs, works perfect.
Well, again, just a quick recap. I mean, they shot down these 3 UFOs supposedly, and the fourth one was a Chinese spy balloon that got shot, actually traveled all the way and crashed in South Carolina. One crashed on Friday in Deadhorse, Alaska. Another one crashed on Saturday. There was a second sighting in Saturday in Montana, and then the third one crashed just today on Sunday up in Michigan, out in Lake Huron. And so they have all these crashes, and they're promoted as UFOs in the media, and then they're going to come out and say, "Oh, these are spy balloons," and it just looks like a Pentagon psyop, man. To me, it just like we wouldn't have heard about this stuff if it was, you know.
Are they all the same, or are they different? So I heard like one was like the best size, and I heard the other was
they're different. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's the first one that they chose to publicize, the first one ever that they let cross the entire nation, was the one that was an actual Chinese real weather balloon, and they knew it was, and that's why they chose to do it. And then they shot it down afterwards, and it probably was just a weather balloon that got caught up in the currents or whatever. And then since then, and using that, they then put up a couple of their own experimental things or something like that, or chose to take out other unknown things or private things or whatever, and then do 3 in a row, boom, 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 even though it's never been publicized before. And that they claim that Trump had a couple happen during his term, even though everyone in the establishment and in the military said, no, it had never happened under Trump's tenure. That is why part of this psyop is that they came in and put 2 more up on their own that they shot down that definitely have nothing to do with China or being weather balloons.
Yeah.
Weather balloon the size of a school bus, is that normal? I thought they were like small radio suns, you know, just little sensors.
Size of the car. The other one, they didn't give like a size estimate. They just gave like it looked like a cylindrical object. But then other pilots from different times and different viewpoints saw different things apparently. So one of them could have been, I was thinking, and also they reported radar jamming and other possible effects, which that reminds me of like the Project Nemesis stuff, right? Where they're able to.
I've got a question. If they reported or experienced radar jamming, how the heck did a missile actually hit it and target it and take it down? That's pretty ridiculous. And why didn't they just use the guns that were on it?
Just use an infrared seeker. The radar wouldn't matter. The one they used had infrared on it, I believe.
Can I get a word in here? I think so. Again,
there's no heat in a balloon.
I think they flew a balloon over trying to get us to use some sort of classified tech to shoot it down, and maybe used radar jamming to stop us from using a missile, but we just waited, used a missile anyway. So now they're sending other craft that trying to get us to use, again, experimental tech to shoot it down to figure out what we might have.
Also, just the amount of time it takes, you know, for the planes to launch and get there and shoot it down and get back, knowing how long that is.
Readiness, you mean?
But I also want to point
stuff like that is valuable.
Makes sense.
One of these sightings sounds like a actual tech program called Nemesis, or netted emulation of multi-element signatures. Okay, that they can actually create false radar blips. They can shut off and intercept radar, interfere with radar with a technology called ECCMs, or electronic countermeasures. They're called, and they can actually. If you read this article by T.D. Barnes, who's a former Area 51 employee, he talks about these programs, and he thinks that all these UFO sightings, including Nimitz, including all this stuff, is this technology. I interviewed him on this channel and asked him about it, and I asked him very detailed and specific questions about these UFO sightings. And this is one of the top Area 51 tech guys, and he's saying that it's all spoofing, it's all fakery technology that they have, and they have these systems in place that if there's an airborne threat or an invasion, if anyone coming over, that they can fool this kind of stuff with some of this advanced technology, which is surprising that these things are able to get through and taken out. They have these sophisticated programs that can shine plasmas in the air and create imaginary fleets and mess up radar. Why can't they why are they letting these balloons all the way through all this protected airspace, and why aren't they deploying and using those technologies to either mess up the either coordination or control system for these things to send them off course or confuse them about where they are, or disable their sensors and data? Because I assume that these plasmas, if they can ionize air, they can also ionize the wires and sensors in your camera. Or spy cameras or your spy devices, So I just, it's curious. I have a lot of questions about this, but the other thing is too, I don't know about Bernie's idea that two of these or some of these could have been, our own PSYOP, our own released balloons.
Or it could have been other unknown actual UAPs or some other threat. I think more likely our own, like you're saying, that theory. But a third theory, it could be they're engaging something else now to blame on the Chinese. So there's a couple of different options.
I said if it was a real UFO and they shot it down, it would be over here somewhere and we would never hear about it. And these ones would be the PSYOPs to distract us.
Well, the Chinese claim that it was an accident and just drifted here in the winds, right? Okay, well, one balloon.
That first one was an actual weather balloon. It was absolutely huge, and it had all the arrays to be weather monitoring stuff. These two new ones, they're saying one looks like a Tic Tac, a little cylindrical thing, no attachments underneath, not a giant balloon, but like an oval shape. And that apparently the second one is also that, and that both of these are up in the Yukon and in Alaska in the middle of effing nowhere, that nobody will ever, other than the militaries, will be able to access them. And did they use that as an excuse both to engage them as well as to blame it all on the Chinese?
I'm just saying it's strange credulity that three of them in a row all drifted in the wind at the same time.
I'm saying only the first one did that. The second and the third were definitely placed by something and something completely other than weather balloons.
How big do the weather balloons get?
The balloon size really big when it goes that high up in the atmosphere. It expands really big, but
not the balloon itself. The payload attachment.
Usually not as large as the one they shot down, but that's as big as they get. Usually,
I thought they were all just like little couple of foot canister sizes.
Well, the one that they shot down genuinely looks like the type that they release in Alaska for a lot of the experiments and stuff. And sorry, not Alaska, Antarctica for a lot of the experiments, but also up in the north around the North Pole. And that originally the Chinese one, before it came into North America, was up in the poles, and then apparently it hit the stream jet that took it down through North America in a way that the stream jet usually doesn't push or flow things. And if that hadn't been there, it would have stayed in the north and the North Pole area or the Arctic area.
Hey, Jeremy, can you move your clock? All we can ever see is the clock instead of your face.
Oh, there we go. I'm down.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry about that. The trajectory this thing took, it's interesting because if one spy balloon I would understand, but when there's so many of them coming down, they seem to be taking this path through the Yukon Territory in Canada and then coming down this way, and it didn't get close to DC, but it flew across all these places and was shot down on February 5th. I'd like to get more information on the trajectory of these other targets. And we got the three other UFOs balloons that were shot down over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I can't wait to see, did these come from the same area? Were they launched, from the same point?
I'd just like to quickly point out that at least one of them, the one in Canada, was all the way in the Yukon, which shows that it went way further west and out off of the ocean coast, where apparently the first Chinese one that they said they tracked all the way from China, it didn't. Yeah, you see it there. It didn't cross the, I guess, continental divide of the Rocky Mountains there ever, where the second one that was in Canada, it never made that turn there and straight south. It continued, or was just in that 90th or 80th or 90 parallel, and all the way west or east into the Yukon in Canada, where it would have been staying in the Arctic. And apparently the one in Alaska also was more to the east and a lot further north. And chances are, if they were balloons, would never make it into the continental North America, as well as both of those have been reported without payloads, like the first one that had all the apparatuses on it.
I'd like to see a map of the jet stream for when that flew, if it really was following the jet stream or not.
Isn't China buying a whole bunch of property right in that area?
In what area?
In the Yukon for mining rights and stuff.
Oh, I think I did hear. Yeah, something, I don't know, week or two about that, something like that.
Ground penetrating radar mining. I don't know.
Jeremy, you were talking about the X-ray thing to see what's underneath the ground. What if they're like trying to find ancient archaeological sites? You know, like
it's probably not as much of their interest. I mean, like that they can. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to find that. I mean, that's archaeology. This is intelligence collection. It's I don't know. I just feel like if they're looking for ancient sites, they'd be in different areas and doing different things. And they can use GPR to look for, archaeologists use GPR a lot all the time.
Like they say there might be buried alien technology, So
they could have the Chinese version of the Nazi Thule, or however you say that.
They're scanning
when they were looking for old artifacts.
I don't know. I think it's much more likely they're looking for data on this NSA spy center that was in Montana, and all the silos and ICBMs. They just seem like more valuable targets and more promising targets than just, we're going to see if there's UFOs buried in the ground. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, they found one in Ukraine, and I believe the whole war was about this thing that they found. It wasn't what we thought it was, but I think it's just that the Ukrainians don't want to give it to Russia, and Russia wants it, and it causes this whole war between them over.
We're making money off natural gas. So, did you see where they released that we blew up the pipeline?
Well, there's that one out there. I believe that one.
Yeah, Seymour Hersh's article, very good.
Yeah. When you see that, Seymour Hersh and the pipeline, I always just say, always suspect an inside job.
If I was Europe, I'd be pissed.
But yeah, that's pretty messed up, man.
Sorry, Jeremy. I feel that Seymour Hersh's article is at least accurate in a lot of it, like the inner workings of it, but it was only allowed between two different factions of the ruling elite that are disagreeing with each other, and how America's foreign policy and covert foreign policy are being played out.
Well, the whole point of it is how the hell can we go over there and do something like that anyway? How can that not be like an active war?
Oh, it's a 100% full active war, and that exactly that with now Seymour Hersh publishing it, that legally Russia could take that to the UN and challenge it as an active war, and if it got ruled as so, that convicted the US of doing it, or a loss, or a UN suit using Seymour Hersh's article to blame the U.S., and if the U.S. was blamed on it, then Russia would have the UN backing that the US attacked it in an act of war.
Was the entire pipeline destroyed or only a section of it? I mean, did the explosion
all four pipelines, all four of the separate pipelines were damaged and destroyed in portions that there's no working pipe out of the four pipelines.
We're talking about like years of to repair it, right?
It's pretty much destroyed it because seawater then got into all four of the pipes, then eroding the inner steel and iron of these pipes away from the protected concrete outer shells of them, and thus are pretty much all completely wasted and couldn't be fixed.
Yeah. Heard it was the greatest environmental disaster ever, but yet don't see a word of that in the media.
This is interesting. So remember that FAA shutdown they had back in January? It was like...
Hey, that's going to affect food supply too. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was, what was it, January 8th or 11th or something? They had this brief, the brief FAA systems outage disrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 1/11. I remember it was the January 11th because everyone's like, oh, it's September 11th. And this is it's a plan leading up to, there was a whole bunch of conspiracy theorists about saying that because it's on the 11th, it's a plan leading up to a PSYOP. And it was the first time that they'd actually shut down any airspace. The FAA had closed airspace since 9/11. And that was it was an interesting thing. I made a stream on that and talked a little bit about, some of the FAA systems and computer systems and control systems.
Did you say January 11th or a couple of days ago?
It was January 11th. All right.
Okay.
So this was
the solar wind.
That's what I thought.
Then it was an outage with the systems went down or something. They had a ground stop at LaGuardia and they had massive delays and it caused all kinds of issues that day. I remember, but and they had a lot of
isn't that when they said something about the software or some kind of update like that? That wasn't a
software thing and a software glitch in the update in their software did something right. But I was just interesting because that was the only time it's happened since 9/11, and that now we've had 2 FAA shutdowns with these UFO. They shut down the FAA in Michigan on Saturday night with that UFO was spotted, the sighting of one of these things, and then they shot down. I think they shut the airspace. Did they over Lake Huron? Yeah. So people talking about Lake Michigan, saying that they shut down the airspace in Lake Michigan today. People were tracking the air flights over Air Michigan just to see that what kind of planes were brought in. And I think someone was mentioning, one of these planes that was brought in looks like a helicopter that's set up for long range missions, and it's like a recon helicopter. And they were trying to find more information on it and where it came from, and because this is like the military's crash recovery teams and units being deployed on these things, and UFO researchers are jumping on that to be like, oh, where's the crash recovery teams and that, So lots of interesting stuff happened this weekend, man. This has been really exciting, and the numbers don't lie. 560 people watching, man. Thank you all for watching, and a lot of new viewers out there, a lot of new people tuning in. I'm the alien scientist. I have a degree in physics. I've been researching this stuff for 20 years, and I have a massive collection of, government studies, UFO data, and other hard evidence in the science realm. If you want to learn about, UFO research and science research into UFOs, secret meetings of, top scientists that were hired by the government to study gravity, and have secret meetings to discuss gravity with, and where the government research has really been at with this, and who the scientists are, and we're all about that here, and this is what we study, and we're not afraid to dig deep and talk about stories that no one else is reporting on, and really try to get to the real answers of the phenomenon and trying to understand it, the physics behind how these craft fly, if they're propulsion systems, their invisibility cloaks, their space warp drives, and any other technologies that they might be using. And I knew this was going to be a bust, and like everyone, I had a whole bunch of people like hitting me up well, oh, you hear about what's going on? What's going on with this? I even had Brett Weinstein text me and say, man, what is going on with all this? Like, can you give me some update or insight? And I got to get back to him and tell him to watch this stream and check it out if he wants to get the lowdown. We've been going on for 2.5 hours now, and I don't want to keep I want to keep it going all night because we got the audience and it's a really interesting story. And but what do you guys say? Should we
hold on one sec? I'm adding it onto my Rumble right now so we can leave it streaming on Rumble. And it is also live on my Crypto Alchemist, but we'll probably end it on YouTube if you want, or should do a poll if they want it to go live on YouTube for another 30 minutes. And then afterwards, it'll be on Rumble.
We can go live for another 30 minutes. We'll do a recap of everything and talk some more, man. This was a great show tonight with lots of ideas, lots of info, lots of people bouncing stuff around. I got a lot of good. The chat's been so packed. It's hard for me to like sit there and keep up with it, guys. I'm sorry, and I'm getting so many new ideas and stuff I want to talk about. So,
so many super chats tonight.
Yeah, there was a ton of super chats tonight too. So thank you everyone who gave super chats. And if we didn't ask your question, then no, we did. We got to all of them. So yeah, and feel free to ask a question if you have it, all caps. We're gonna go to a little private mode now, and I'm gonna end it on my channel. I'm sure I'm gonna be having people contacting me all throughout the week to give updates and reports on this. And
can I ask you a quick question? The spintronics are frequently brought up. Are those theoretical, or do we have real circuits made from those?
They were theoretical up until maybe like a couple years ago, but there are people working on photonic circuits and building them. Just the basic. They're more like the basic switches that will be required. So. They haven't actually, been, this is like, 2020. This was recent. I think 2018, 19 is the one these, there was a group out of, is this the,
I seen a thing about 5 years ago, but it wasn't photonics. It was just an electric current, but the electrons were spin aligned.
Yeah.
That's separate. Ideas?
It's the same idea. It's this idea of solid state base where you're using the electron spins and spin transport electrons. So it's
that was it.
So
it's very similar. And they're trying to. The issue is integrating this with quantum computers and the materials that you need to create these condensates so that you can get all your coherence with your spin states and stuff. Because there's the problem is there's a lot of noise and other issues that interfere with these things. They're super sensitive, So they're trying to build them so that they're more robust and not so sensitive. Because you get too much light shining on this thing, or an EMP from an electric discharge or something, it's gonna reset and mess up all your electronics.
I was under the impression it was room temperature, but it's not.
Yeah, no, they're room temperature, man. Yeah, they are, but they're just super susceptible to they're quantum systems, so they're just coupled to everything. So it's hard to uncut. It's hard to keep them coupled to their spin states and quantum networks and uncouple it from everything else outside your closed system, electronic device or spintronic device. So there's a lot of issues that they're running into with producing these, getting these things produced, but they're making these things, the spintronic things. So like you read that whole article and all the DRD reports with the metallic glasses and the laser etching. So they're laser etching these metals and metallic glasses to produce quantum dots. So they're like basically using lasers to print quantum dots on these materials, and those quantum dots give these spintronic properties to the surface, so they can use, you know, spintronics on the surface. On the surface plasmons act more coherent when there's a system of quantum dots on the surface. So
I wonder if they could make it like a quantum tunnel, for lack of a better. In other words, instead of a dot, just have a narrow tunnel that it follows that would keep it aligned.
So is this not quantum entanglement? Like, how is that the spin states?
it is, yeah, it is quantum entanglement, because the spin states become entangled and they become coherent. So it's solid state, or so it's things in the solid state, which is anything that's a solid, like crystal or quasi-crystal or metallic glass, and it's all about these electronics and how the spins carry a lot of the associated electronic charge and solid state devices, essentially. So you can create. There's a lot to do with the theory on superconductivity and how superconductors are formed. You know, based on these. It's just a quantum geometry, really. The Cooper pairing, the whole idea of BCS theory, with the electrons form these pairs, and the pairs align the spin states, so it makes them act like bosons instead of half spin electrons. The half spin plus the half spin, when in these Cooper pairs add up to make an integer spin, so that they start behaving quantum mechanically, statistically a lot differently. So, but again, we just lost 100 people getting into physics.
Yeah, I ended it live on one of my YouTube channels. We're still live on your channel and my Crypto Alchemist, and now live on my Rumble. As soon as you end it on, let me know as soon as you want me to end it on your Alien Scientist one, and then we'll drop from 500 to 150, but that's okay.
Yeah, we got a lot of people watching on Alien Scientist. Instead of everyone who's not watching on Alien Scientist, please go to Alien Scientist and subscribe to my channel. I dropped the StreamYard link in if anyone wants to join in and ask questions directly or join the conversation. It's been 3 hours going now. Thank you all for bearing with me. Some of you are just tuning in now. Some of you are just tuning out. But I'm gonna take a quick 5-minute break after I end this, and then I'll rejoin you guys, and hopefully we'll get some audience members in here to join the conversation and ask some questions.
I'm just gonna post your channel link in my live first, so everybody can go subscribe. I did have it actually pinned earlier for 3/4 of the time it was live on my channel to subscribe to your channel with the link. I just switched the pin to now be on the Rumble, that everybody can watch live on Rumble afterwards. Although I will keep it live on Crypto Alchemist YouTube for about another 5 minutes. It's ending on Alien Scientist YouTube in 1 minute, and it will switch over to be live on Alien Scientist Twitter. If you want to see the after party live on Twitter, go on to Alien Scientist Twitter and subscribe there.
Long form videos too. Yeah, follow me on Twitter, alien_scientist, and also consider subscribing to me on YouTube if you like the content. And thank you all. It's been great, and please send me an invite. I'd love to come on your show or your channel, as long as you're not the mainstream media or BBC, CNN. You can go to hell. Screw you guys. But any underground media, any real people out there that want to talk and talk about real information, and not sit there and interview me for 4 hours and cut it down with clever editing to a 5-minute segment that makes a fool out of me. I'm all set with you clowns and all you fake news agencies out of there. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to help us and hit the like button. And I'll see you guys all in about 10 minutes. I'm going to go take a quick break and answer some text messages and stuff. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
So we are now ending live on Alien Scientist YouTube, still live, Crypto Alchemist YouTube, still live, Rumble, and it's going to be live in 10 minutes on Jeremy's Alien Scientist Twitter.